Today we're going to make the squares for this quilt. We're going to be working on them. And I had already done one square and showed you how I was doing it and told you I was going to do some other ones. We had people reach out that asked us to show how to do the other ones. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's get started. In order to make our half square triangles, we're going to take two 5.5 inch squares. And it's 5.5 because if you remember, when we made these squares, they were white squares at 5 inches in size. So we need this to be the same size as this. So we need it to go up 1/2 inch to account for our seam allowance. So these two are 5.5 inches. We're going to lay them upside down, one of them, and we're going to draw a line. If I can get my ruler. Diagonally down the center of that block. You can use any marking tool you prefer. It can be a pencil, it can be a marking pencil of chalk or whatever you want to do. So we're going to put our right sides together. We're going to line them up, and then we're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of that line. We are not going to sew on that line. So I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, line it up to 1/4 inch. Sew on this side. Take it out. And then sew on the other side at 1/4 inch. Again, we are not sewing on the drawn line. Once we get it finished, it'll look like this. Flip our threads, and it'll look like this. We'll have that line that we drew and a seam on each side. Now we're going to take it to the cutting table. Once we're at the cutting table, we're going to take our square and we're going to line it up, the ruler, to the line that we drew in here on the pencil, with the pencil. Line that up and cut directly on that line we drew, so that now when you open it up, you've got two half square triangles. Then we're going to take these little dog ears over here, and I'm just going to cut them off. You don't have to, but I like to do that. Then we will iron it. But now you'll see that this square and this square are the same size. So now, by doing that, we've got two half square triangles ready for a square in this quilt. For this square, because it does measure the right size, we don't need that white backing piece added to this. And again, you can also do these without that backing. It's up to you. I prefer to have that backing to line it up, measure it with. I don't have to worry about anything else. If you don't like doing it that way, don't do it that way. But on this one, I'm not going to use the white backing piece because I don't need it. So I'm going to move that to the side, and I'm going to start working on my stripped piece. Here is the white square that we started with. And then I've got a bunch of strips from some of my scraps. And I'm going to take these strips and I'm going to start with this piece here. I'm going to find one that's at least as long as this square with a little left over. Let's see, this one looks like it might be. Yep. And I'm going to line it up diagonally in the center like that. And I want it hanging over here, and I want it hanging over here. Now this is a lot hanging over, so I can cut this right here just to get it out of my way. Back in the stack for later. So that's going to be laid down actually right sides up like that. Then I'm going to take another piece that is at least this long from here to here, and this one is. So I'm going to take this like that, line them up right sides together, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch down this side. So I'm going to bring the sewing machine over, and I'm going to sew these 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down, keeping them lined up. I'm going to sew a little bit off of that white square so that I know it's covered. my needle up good enough. Then I'm going to open them up. And it's flat like that. I still see white. So I'm going to take another piece. I think I've got some little tiny scraps. Let's do, this is the hard part, is picking out the piece. Let's take this one. I'm going to cut it a little bit now. I'm going to line it up here. Take it back to the 1/4 inch seam that I'm going to sew on it. Actually get it lined up better. There we go. Then I'm going to start sewing that 1/4 inch seam. Take it out of the sewing machine again. Cut my threads, open it up, and that side is covered. So I'm going to turn the square around this way, and I'm going to find a piece to go the other side. So let's see which one I want to do. Let's do this one. Nope. Let's do this one. I gotta trim that other one up a little bit better. We'll sew it at a 1/4 inch. Open it up, and I've still got a little piece here. I'll just use this one. Nope, not quite wide enough. Let's see what this one is. Make it this way. Yep, that'll work because it goes over the white square a little bit. So I'm going to start sewing it at a 1/4 inch. And you could iron after each piece that you put on. I am not a fan of ironing. I know you have to, but I'm not a fan of it all the way through it. So what I do is I just flatten it out with my finger press, and then there you go. Now I'm going to take it to the cutting mat and I'm going to trim it up. Now that I'm at the cutting mat, I'm going to take this square and I'm going to turn it upside down, making sure it's flat. I'm going to start on one side and line this ruler up to the white square. This is why I use the white square, is because I don't have to worry about measurements on this cutting mat. I can just cut along my white square. If you don't want to do this and you don't want to use that white square, then measure it and line it up. I'm going to do this to all sides, and when I get finished, my block is complete. So now I've shown you how to make the square, half square, triangle square, how to make the strip square like these, and then I threw in that crazy patch square too with just the scraps, the scrappy square. So I'm going to make a bunch of those different squares, and I'm going to do it over time. I've got a tote full of strips, I've got a tote full of scraps, and I've got some pieces big enough to make the triangles. So I'm going to do all those over time. As I have time, I'm going to make them, and then I'm just going to put the squares aside until I have enough to make a quilt like this. And then when I have enough, I'm going to patch them, put them together into squares like this. And I think I'm going to do all of these as strips, and then I'm going to do all of these as half square triangles, and then I'll do all of these as scrappy squares. So I'll have one big scrappy square, one big half square triangle, and one big strip square. All the big ones are made up from 4 little ones. And then I'm gonna sash them like this. So once I get it done, it'll be a while down the road because it's a project as I have time, little by little. As the scraps keep adding to the pile, I'll keep making more to use the scraps and to finish an extra quilt from what would have been what a lot of people call trash. So that is all for today. Until next time, you guys have a great day. Enjoy what you're doing, get involved, make some other things, learn some new techniques, and Until next time, happy quilting.